What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on, NFL world? How you doing, division rivals? This is Steven Hyder with Gate City Sports Channel. This is the channel where the cerebral NFL fan comes for about 10 minutes of daily content. All right, guys. So, little update. We're still all kind of waiting around to see what Howie Roseman's ultimate moves are going to be. But look, there was a very minute, small move made along the defensive line and made at defensive end. And it just seems to be a very common trend to me when it comes to this Eagle organization, when it comes to defensive end positioning. There's a general consensus of trying to go young there. So they added a kid from Cleveland, a former fifth round pick, Genard Avery, who played quite a bit last year, but has been used very sparingly this year. I think he's had less than 10 snaps this year. And they brought him in as a defensive end. He was an outside linebacker, kind of rush linebacker in Cleveland. They already designated that he would be a defensive end and not a linebacker here on the Eagles. So, look, looking at this roster, this is how this defensive ends are now stacking up, guys. Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett, Josh Sweat, Vinny Curry, Deshaun Hall, Genard Avery, and Sharif Miller. So, very young guys. Outside of Brandon Graham and Vinny Curry, who are both 31-year-old, veterans on the defensive line, everyone else here is very, very young. Derek Barnett's only 23. Josh Sweat's only 22. Deshaun Hall's only 24. Genard Avery is still 24, and Sharif Miller's only 22. But it would make me question, how do the Eagles view Deshaun Hall? How do they view Sharif Miller? What does this say for Vinny Curry in the long term, as much as long term can be for a 31-year-old? I mean, what does this tell us by bringing in this guy? I mean, I think there's going to definitely be a shakeup. I'm not sure what player, but to me, it seems like the Eagles really value Derek Barnett and Josh Sweat. My eyes tell me they should value Deshaun Hall more than they do, but I don't know yet. And Sharif Miller just has not been given an opportunity yet. I'm not too sure where we're going to sit here with this right now, guys. I mean, when you look at the defensive tackles, you got Fletcher Cox, Malik Jackson, Tim Jernigan, Hassan Ridgeway, Anthony Rush, Albert Huggins. Obviously, Jackson, Jernigan, and Ridgeway are all down with injury. Jernigan designated to come back. Jackson and Ridgeway probably shut down for the season. Possibly could be returned, but I doubt it. And then it leaves us with a lot of young guys, man. I mean, looking at this roster, you still got Malik Jackson being the most veteran or senior guy here at 29. Fletcher Cox behind him at 28. You got Jernigan at 27. But then you got Ridgeway, who's 24, Anthony Rush, who's 23, and Huggins, who's 22. So there's even a youth movement there. So this defensive line has a lot of youth. I still think, if it's me and I'm Howie Roseman and I'm searching this trade wire and I'm trying to find talent to add to the defensive line, I think I would go for a veteran guy who might only be on a 1 to 2 year contract and who I can kind of plug in beside Fletcher Cox to give stability there and give enough of a pass rush, depending on how you feel about Tim Jernigan, because Tim Jernigan can absolutely be that guy. But the question is with a broken foot coming back from that, what kind of confidence level do they have in Tim Jernigan at this point? And I think this trade deadline is going to tell us a lot about how they view Deshaun Jackson's health, how they view Tim Jernigan's health, how they view this pass rush, because either the moves you do or the moves you don't make are going to really shape pretty much, or they're going to tell us as fans what the front office thinks about this current list of players. I think the long-term future is fine. That's why I'm saying I'd be cautious. I'm assuming that you're a Giants fan there, Frank the Tank, just judging from your comments, but about the Leonard Williams situation, Leonard Williams would have been a nice piece to add, but I'm not really worried because Leonard Williams isn't going to take time away in the long term from a guy like Malik Jackson. So I'll take Fletcher Cox, Malik Jackson, and Hassan Ridgeway in the long term over adding a guy like Leonard Williams. So that one I'm not personally concerned about. I mean, he would have been a fit. It would have made sense to pair that in with a Robbie Anderson type trade, but I'm not overly concerned there. If we end up getting Tim Jernigan back after the bye week, and now we have Fletcher Cox, Tim Jernigan, Anthony Rush, and Albert Huggins to make the push, I'd be okay with that if we've got a fully healthy Timmy Jernigan. Timmy Jernigan's a disruptive force when he's fully healthy, so I'm fine with that. Would I love to go out and go get a marquee guy like a Geno Atkins? You bet your ass I would. There's what's his name? Wolf from Denver, I think, would be a good interior pass rusher for us. A guy that can come in and play a 5 technique or play a 3 technique. So, I mean, could you line him up as defensive end here and there, stuff the run? Sure. Could you line him up, as your base, defensive tackle just to play right beside Fletcher Cox in a 43? Sure. So I think there are veteran guys out there that we could get that would be, just kind of a patchwork deal for a year or two. Knowing that Malik Jackson is the guy that you signed to be the next 2 or 3 years beside Fletcher Cox. So I would, me personally, that's where I'm looking. There is a lot of chatter going on right now about Darius Slay, guys. When I put that video out there, I did not realize that Darius Slay's situation was heating up the way it is. I didn't realize that, and that is starting to really take a turn. I don't know. I honestly didn't think it was that great of a possibility, but I'm starting to see that the Eagles are actually making serious consideration for Darius Slay. I'm confused on why Detroit would want to deal such a player, but apparently there's smoke to that fire, apparently. We'll see. We'll see what happens there, guys. Look, I really think that the Eagles need to consider linebacker, guys. I mean, certain teams, like you play a team like Buffalo, and they don't have the players to expose your linebacker depth issues. But I think if you look at other teams like the Cowboys and some of these other teams we've got to play this year, like I'm concerned about this linebacking core. Without Nigel Bradham back, we got a problem on our hands here against better competition. These guys, sometimes they don't get deep enough in their zone coverages to make a difference in pass coverage. Like they're not very dynamic at blitzing the quarterback. Some of them get eaten up at the second level on blocks. I mean, during the running game, like I'm concerned, me personally, on the defensive side for what's going on at linebacker. I would love to see someone at least serviceable stepping in there at linebacker. I have no indication that the Eagles are even looking anywhere for linebacker, but it's just like a personal wish listing for me. Like I said, guys, I'm not Howie Roseman. I don't work in this front office. I'm not one of their scouts. I'm not one of their analysts, their analytics people. So I don't have a say. I don't have a dog in this fight per se, other than just being a fan. But I think it's time the Eagles reevaluate the way that they evaluate talent in general on the defensive side of the ball and how they like to allocate that talent. Like with some of these guys, these aging guys like Brandon Graham and stuff like that kind of coming up, maybe it's about time to really reconsider the way we're doing this because, I think this season more than anything should show us if there's any kind of imperfection with the pass rush, we're in a world of trouble with the talent and the depth we have on the defensive side of the ball. Like I think it has to be addressed. And I'm not a big fan of the way we've allocated talent recently. All right. Past that, guys, I know most of us here are all still hoping that we end up either Deshaun Jackson needs to come back and needs to come back healthy, needs to come back to make this team a little more dynamic offensively, or we need to go out and get a guy who's going to make this team a little more dynamic, who can stretch the field, a guy like Robbie Anderson, a guy like Devontae Parker. Look, I know that we're still a week or two away before Josh Gordon can get back on the field with his knee injury, but we do know that from Josh Gordon's words, he's pretty close to being able to return back to game action. So if that move is made and they release him, the Patriots do, a guy like even Josh Gordon would be helpful. Because the bottom line is if we don't get Deshaun Jackson back healthy, or if we don't make a move to shore up someone who can stretch the field, then Doug Peterson has to take a long look at himself in the mirror, and he's going to have to basically really evaluate the way that he's calling plays. We've got to switch our offensive identity to a point because without being able to stretch the field, some of the things we like to do as an offense has got to go. It's got to go out of this playbook because we're not fooling anyone and no one's biting on it. Look, 21-man personnel, 22-man personnel, putting these two backs in the backfield, either an I formation, offsetting formation, split back formations. Like, hey, I like what I saw these last two games with doing that. We probably need to go a little heavier into that if we don't have a guy that can stretch the field. And this is going to be key, guys. What we do in this up until 4 o'clock tomorrow is going to be key to decide where we're going with this. All right, guys, I'm going to flip this back on you to end this. You guys tell me, are you satisfied with the long-term health at defensive end? I think Derek Barnett is going to be a star in this league. But I am a little concerned with when you get past Josh Sweat. Brandon Graham, Barnett, and Josh Sweat, what we had there. I think Vinny Curry can still play inside and can provide pass rush as kind of a defensive tackle, almost the way we used to like to use Malik the way we used to like to use Michael Bennett, the way that we've liked to use Brandon Graham on occasion. I think Vinny Curry's got that possibility as well. He's strong enough to create a pass rush there. I think he's a serviceable defensive end who can set the edge and stop, the running attack. But I do get concerned with him being just a pure pass rusher on the edge. That does concern me with Vinny Curry. I don't know why, but the staff just refuses to give Deshaun Hall probably what I think would be adequate looks to give him a possibility to show that he truly is worthy of the third round grade he had once upon a time. And the talent level we saw during training camp and what we saw during the preseason, I mean, I thought when he's been given shots to play, he's done pretty well. So, I mean, I don't know what's going on there. I'm a little concerned with Sharif Miller. I mean, you make a move for a guy like Jannard Avery, who does have playing experience, even though it hasn't been that many snaps this year. I mean, what does that mean for a guy like Sharif Miller? I'm not really sure. I mean, what are your thoughts there, guys? I mean, I still think you go get a veteran guy this year like Von Miller. I think you would definitely improve the pass rush. I think that helps you push for a Super Bowl run because I do think the pass rush is much more important than corner play at this point. I think as we keep getting some of these younger guys back in our secondary, we'll make those strides, slow strides, guys. We're not going to go up to one of the best pass defenses overnight, but we can move back towards the middle. We can move back towards the median. You guys know what I mean. What are your thoughts there, guys? I mean, do you think we need to be all in on a guy like Patrick Peterson, a guy like Darius Slay, and say, look, we've got enough with the youth, we've got enough on the defensive end to make our play? Do you think that maybe we go with a veteran guy at the defensive tackles until, for this season, since we're down Malik Jackson, Hassan Ridgeway, and go get a guy like Geno Atkins, go get a guy like Wolf off of Denver? Like, there's a couple other players you can plug in there, but you guys get the general consensus of what we're saying. Some people have made light that maybe not Darius Slay, but some of the actual defensive tackles that are on Detroit's team that we might be able to go make a play for Detroit's defense, their interior players. I don't know if I'm Detroit. I can't see giving up on the season. I don't think they're out of contention yet. But I don't know, man. I mean, records mean nothing with the way teams identify themselves in terms of being in contention. So one team's 3-3-1 versus another team's 4-4. Just the way that teams view themselves can be completely different, guys. I don't know, guys. I don't know what else we could do. This is the way I'm seeing this roster shaping out. But you guys tell me. I mean, obviously, I think we're all in agreement that we need someone who can stretch the field if Deshaun Jackson is not ready for this game. I think this, to me, is the make or break week for Deshaun Jackson because we can't keep sitting around waiting for him. We're in the heart of the schedule to where getting Deshaun Jackson back for the end stretch, I mean, outside of the Dallas game, I mean, we can beat the rest of those teams on the schedule without Deshaun Jackson. That's not a concern. We need him now. We need him for the stretch against Chicago, the stretch against New England, the stretch against Seattle, not the back end of the schedule. We can handle that. I mean, I don't know. I just, these are my thoughts, guys. I mean, we're kind of just waiting around. We're all sitting on our hands. We'll see. My gut feeling tells me that we're not done yet, but we'll see what happens. All right, y'all. I'm going to jump off here. Tell me your comments. Tell me your thoughts here. Where do you see us going, guys? What's your dream wish list, or what does your instincts tell you about how he's going to do? All right, y'all. You know what time it is. Like, comment, and subscribe. And it's time that we do this here in Eagles Nation where we go E-A-G-L-E-S. All right, y'all. Let's go Eagles, baby.